We are live, and today on the podcast Café com Embarcados, we have a very special episode. We are welcoming Josef Holzmayr. He's a developer enablement expert on Mender.io and community manager on Yocto Project. He's going to talk about custom Linux distributions with Yocto Project. In just a moment, our guest will be joining this streaming.
Yes, we also have Bruna here with us to help us to the questions.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
We are in English today.
Embarcados is in
English. Now it's English. Let's train in our English. Okay. Today the episode is so incredible. We are really excited about today's episode. It's a real pleasure to have Josef with us, because Yocto is doing amazing work in enabling professional grade systems. Yes. And also, I say big thank you to everyone here in chat. Please, guys, drop your message in chat and let us where you are tuning from. Feel free to send your questions through the stream and stick around and enjoy this special edition of Café com Embarcados in English.
Oh, all right. Oh, yeah.
English edition.
And people, we are going to share the screen now just to present Embarcados for a few minutes, and then we invite our guest to come to the room. Okay. So this is Embarcados, and Embarcados is updated every day. We are a leading Brazilian platform dedicated to embedded systems and the Internet of Things. Since 2007 in Brazil, we've been connecting engineers, developers, researchers, enthusiasts through a high-quality technical content, much of which is created by the community itself. Okay, our platform features articles, tutorials, news, and projects insights, and also AI, embedded Linux, industrial IoT. In addition of our online presence, we have in-person events across Brazil, especially in São Paulo, where we create spaces for learning, networking, and collaboration. So we invite you all to come to our events also. We are going to have an online event about embedded Linux also. We also offer specialized online training programs to help professionals stay updated and build expertise in key areas of embedded development. There's one special training that we are promoting now that is for Yocto Project. I'm going to share here. Okay, so you go to cursos.embarcados.com.br, all courses, and then select Yocto Project here. It's on the end here. There's this penguin. So guys from the EMC, they designed this special training that they cover all the Yocto Project system. So the classes are already published. They are publishing this course now, and then we are promoting here. You can see everything that they teach here, right, Bruna?
Right. The course is finished. Right. And it's very nice. There are a lot of things. And we also go in depth to the new version of Yocto 5. So it's very interesting.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to send the link for this course here for the people on the chat. Okay, Fabio. How about we say good evening to everyone that is joining the chat on YouTube and LinkedIn?
Of course. Let me see who is joining us today here in chat. Let me open here. What? My chat's okay. Here, André Mesquita. Good evening, André. And here, William Tunis Maya, embedded
William.
William now is working with Linux.
Yes, embedded system Linux.
Adriano is here too. Good evening. Chip here. Rodrigo.
Yes, Rodrigo.
Yes. and after YouTube put the subtitle. Brenda, hello Brenda. Look forward to see this episode. Hi guys. Caio, hello Caio. William here, and Guilherme, hello guys, good evening. Rogério, and yeah. Okay guys, welcome and let's go.
Oh, let me introduce the guest now. Okay, so Joseph, it's a very good time to receive you here for the podcast. Thank you very much.
Hello. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Thanks, Thiago and Fabio, for the invitation. Thanks, Bruna, for making the connection. I guess we will touch upon how this actually came together later a little bit. But so far, let me tell you, very warm welcome from southern Germany. It's late evening here, so I have a lot of lights in here because otherwise it would be completely dark. And yeah, super happy to talk to you a little bit about Yocto, creating custom distributions, a little bit of Mender maybe. Whatever brings us, whatever this evening brings us. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much for your time and being here today from Munich, live from Germany. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And greetings to Brazil. So when very small anecdote here. When I talked to my wife this morning, I was like, hey, tonight I've got an appointment. I'm appearing in a Brazil show. And she was like, but how are you going to talk to them? And I said, like, well, I can put my English in a really bad accent, but it won't help. So I'm gonna stick with I'm gonna stick with my usual. Sorry, because I speak no Portuguese or whatever languages exist out of there. I'm really, really sorry.
No, English.
Okay, Joseph, let's get started with the questions. And please give you a brief introduction of yourself and your career for us.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I'm not sure if I would want to call it a career, because it's actually maybe more like a chain of random things that led one into the other. So, some 20 years back, I studied electronics and how does it translate? Information technologies. There, I went into an internship and I started doing bare metal stuff. And there, I felt like, hey, this bare metal stuff is kind of cool, but running Linux on those things is even cooler. And so one thing led to the other. I started running Linux on those things. Then I started doing more Linux-ish things. I got involved with Ubuntu. I started building an actual product out of things. And this is how I really got kind of like, I wouldn't say it was a planned career or trajectory or whatever. So like many of us, I really grew into this ecosystem, which is now huge. I mean, embedded Linux 20 years ago, that was crazy. Maybe we can talk about this a little bit later. And so my career actually is a lot of super boring industrial controls, which you should not touch. And it is a couple of years of actually talking to people, which I enjoy a lot. And this evening is one of those like prime moments where I can talk about what I do. So yeah, that doesn't sound like a real career, but I did.
And about the musician career.
Sorry?
And about the musician career.
Yeah, the musician career. Yeah, you can see the remainders in the background. Again, it was in another life. It was a long time ago. I'd say we had a lot of fun. I mean, that's what music is about, right? It's about having fun. And that's also like, it's the connection to what I do. I still enjoy talking to people, entertaining people, going on stage. Now it's not so much with noise. Now it's with hopefully entertainment and knowledge. But I mean, I think Linux or technology as a whole often lacks a little bit of rock and roll, and I try to bring that.
Yes, sure. Joseph, with over 2 decades in embedded Linux, you've seen the community and Linux systems evolve dramatically. We are watching this live. What was the moment that the specific change that initially drew you to Yocto Project, and how was its role in creating custom Linux distribution changed since you first been involved?
Yeah, that's the story of my life, actually.
Yeah.
Because I told you I started a long time ago, and when I actually started to do these things, you could not build a Linux distribution. So there is this book, Building Embedded Linux Systems, by Karim Yamur, by now a good friend of mine, which I had. And you know what it told you? It told you, have this directory layout, then build the kernel like this, then build the bootloader like this, then build blah, 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 blah. It was crazy. It was like roughly 100,000 steps, each of which would go wrong. And then you would end up with something which might be something like a Linux system. Mm-hmm. And this is where I started out. And then when I did my master's thesis, I started using Buildroot. And Buildroot back then was UC-libc only. Who does still remember UC-libc? Can I see some reaction in the chat?
I don't. I'm sorry.
See? Okay. And but Buildroot already was around, and I used it a little bit, and it did things, but it did them in a way which would not scale for me. Buildroot is cool, but it does not really work out if you have multiple projects which share a little bit of code but diverge in others. So where you have like a combinational explosion. And then in 2011, Yocto was announced. I looked at it and I was like, what does this do? And then somebody told me like, yeah, it's just like a formal version of Open Embedded. So I was like, what's Open Embedded? Let me look at it. And I looked at it and I was like, there's no way this makes sense because it's just like super overcomplicated and nobody wants to use it. I'm going to stick with Buildroot. And 2012 came, 2013 came. In that time, I had more products out in the field. I attended Embedded Linux conference, and they offered a beginner's course on Yocto. Jeffro was the community manager back then, and so I signed up for it because I already was there. I was like, not sure this actually makes sense, but I'm already around. Let's look at it. I mean, it's basically free. And I went there, and I was like, hey, I mean, it's super complicated, but this actually makes sense. And I was like, it not only does it make sense, I think this is actually what I need to use for my products because it will make my life easier. And this was the time or the day I was like, I need to return to my boss, show him how Yocto does things, and tell him, hey, this is the way we need to go for all our future stuff. And this is what we did. And based on this, I got involved in Yocto because back then Yocto was still a lot smaller. There were not so many resources out there. And I just asked questions. So I got on RC. I said, like, I want to do X. How does this work? And I got a response. And I was like, hey, this is a good place. I'm going to stick around. And yeah, that's where it all started. I tried to do things. I went on RC. I got stuck there. First, I asked questions. Then I answered questions. At some point in time, I was like, hey, I'm not just going to answer questions. I got to go out and talk a little bit more about Yocto. So I did that. And then I talked to a video camera about Yocto. I talked to people about Yocto. And at some point in time, this was like, hey, don't you want to be like the Yocto Project community manager? And yeah, I said, I guess that makes sense. So here I am. I'm a grassroots developer. I'm coming from using Yocto, early revisions of Yocto, in real products, and I've kept on using it. I've kept on asking questions, and I've tried to help people. So the biggest change, I took a long time here to explain it, but the biggest change here that Yocto brought is the composability. That it might sound a little bit off here, but having the layers, that is a superpower, because you can have the shared code in one layer, you can have the distribution in one layer, you can have the application specific to a product in one layer, and you can mix and match all of those, and you can add a BSP, and you can add basically everything without breaking other things. And I guess we will talk a lot about breaking things, because that's what happens if you do embedded. And this is the one big thing that Yocto initially brought: this composability, the layers, the sophisticated handling of metadata. This is what rang my bell to get to use it, to get involved. And this is a very, very unique feature. I've seen it evolve from the very beginning, and like, people nowadays feel like, yeah, this is just like how things is. But let me tell you, 15 years ago, because that's when Yocto started, this was a real game changer.
Excellent, Joseph.
So here in Brazil, Yocto project in general has not yet become mainstream per se in the embedded community, but we are seeing a rising of interest in the subject every year. And beyond just technical implementation, you just said some things, some interesting points. The modularity of Yocto, I would call it, I don't know if it's the right term in English, but you just said some things. But beyond just technical implementation, what are the most common misconceptions and the biggest obstacles that companies face when they decide to adopt the Yocto project for their custom Linux distribution, and what advice you do to overcome them, especially when companies are sometimes don't even know what Yocto is. How do you start implementing the marketing and the challenges that we face?
Yeah. So you started out with an interesting point that Yocto is not mainstream in Brazil yet. I wouldn't say Yocto is mainstream anywhere. So, or at least nobody admits it. That's crazy. Because the challenge really, so there's two challenges. There's the mental challenge, the grasp of what, whoa, I've got some magic here in my camera, and I got a new fancy AI camera, and it does things I really, cool. Okay, so there's yeah, that was unintentional but fun. So there's two big challenges when it comes to Yocto. The one is the mindset, and the other one is technical. The mindset one actually exists in most people's heads, not only in the tech people. Because if you go out on the street and then you ask somebody, hey, do you know what an embedded device is? Do you know what Linux is? So obviously you also don't know what embedded Linux is. That's the look I get. And then I tell people, hey, do you have a Kindle? This is embedded Linux. What? And so the big challenge is that first, people do not even understand that all of this software in the devices of their daily life has to come from somewhere. They understand computers, or they know computers, and computers are the thing that they can use in the way they want it to. So if I have a computer, be it a Mac, be it running Linux, be it running Windows, it doesn't really matter. I can choose an application and I can run it. Whereas on an embedded device, I don't do that. So I buy a device, I expect it to have a specific function, like a coffee maker, and I expect it to just make coffee. I don't think about its software, at least not me. So the first challenge is that people don't understand there is actually a lot of software in embedded. Now, a lot of people are tasked and challenged to build software for embedded devices. Most of them will start out the way they know things. If you are really, really unlucky, then you will end up with a developer who only knows Windows and Microsoft C#. If you end up with, or if you're lucky and you end up with a developer who's been tinkering with stuff, you end up with somebody who knows the Raspberry Pi and the Raspberry Pi OS and blah, 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 and who will know the command line and tinker a little bit around with it. And the problem here is that those people bring their own background in terms of how to use a Linux system. If you use a Raspberry Pi the way the Raspberry Pi Foundation tells you, you run a Debian, you log into it, you do things, you change it, you tinker a little bit more. Does it work? No, it doesn't work. So install something else, blah. No, it doesn't really work. Tinker a little bit more. And in the end, you end up with something where you have one device which does what you want, which is cool if you want exactly one device in your basement. And here comes the big technical challenge. To educate people that the Yocto project is not a Linux distribution like Ubuntu, which you install and then you beat it until it does what you want. No, you really start from zero and you define exactly what you want. You say, I want this package in this configuration. I want it installed like that. I want to have this additional thing. My machine looks like this. You have to do everything in advance. You have to be able to understand your problem. You have to understand your application. You have to understand your device. You write everything down, then you build it, and then it's done. This is like the challenge that the crazy thing. This is the challenge that the developers face. That they come from a background where they don't know about build time of embedded Linux, which Yocto does. From there, I mean, the rest is just technicalities in how we write things down, in how we make things happen. How does a recipe look like? How does an image look like? These things are easy once you have understood what Yocto is about. And it's really, really hard if you haven't made your mind up. So there's the two things are understanding embedded software and understanding that building embedded software is completely different from your desktop software. I know this sounds not very technical. Maybe we'll get to some specific aspects of this. But this is the thing that people need to get in their minds if they are building a device, if they are running a company, or if they are hiring a consultancy to make things. Because if you hire somebody for the wrong reasons, with the wrong specifications, it really doesn't matter if you use Yocto or Ubuntu or Debian or Fedora or whatever. If you have the wrong specifications, you will get a wrong product. You will get a product that is not maintainable. If you have the right specifications, if you have understood your use case, then you can get a good product, and then Yocto can be a fit. Like I said, the understanding that software needs to be done properly, that the software is not something you tinker with, that the software is something that you need to maintain over a long time. This is the big challenge. And this is not something that is unique to Brazil. Not at all. I would even say that it probably is less a problem in Brazil because you don't have industries which are 300 years old and will tell you, hey, we know how this works. And I'm like, no, you know everything about screws, but you know nothing about software. So I would say the fact that that Yocto and embedded Linux are not yet so popular in Brazil is not a challenge. I mean, it's a chance, right? You can build things.
Yeah, I asked this question also because here we are, companies here, they struggle a lot with the idea of open source in general. I think they are a little bit afraid. I don't know if this is the word, but when they want to make a product, they do not always see something open source as good. They think it will not be safe. I don't know how to explain better, but there's some resistance yet. But it's growing, it's getting better, bigger, and it's an opportunity.
Good. I need to turn this off. This makes me crazy. I mean, it's fun, but it drives me crazy. I need to learn something too. Question from my side. Are those companies scared of open sourcing their own product, or are they scared of using open source? Because that's a big difference.
I would say both. Making their products open source is a big no. Almost every company I worked for, I do consulting, but they're scared of open source too a little. Like they think their products will not be safe. They're scared of the license, open license like GPL. Then you have Kit, for example, and they you need to open your codes so you can use their license. They don't, sort of something. They don't like I don't know if Thiago and Fabio want to add something, but I would say it's both.
So same like everywhere else. Every company I've ever talked to is afraid of having to open source their own code. So it's the same everywhere. And yes, it's the same fear that open source might not be safe or secure or whatever. It's not only in Brazil. It's the same story everywhere. And you can't force it upon people. If somebody is completely mentally locked into some closed source, super expensive, whatever RTOS for their project, and they are happy to pay the royalties, I mean, who am I to discuss with them? If they are happy paying for it and it does what they want, or if they need it for whatever legal reasons. I mean, if you are in aviation, for example, then you might need certifications like blah blah, which VxWorks or whatever gives you. Hey, I mean, go ahead, no problem. I see chances for open source. I don't see world domination. We don't have, or I mean, I don't have to see world domination because we already have world domination. But my mission is not to force open source or the Yocto project upon everybody or upon every company, because in a lot of cases, as you said, the challenge is not technical, and this is not something that we as engineers can easily change. It's there is one exception, which is the price tag. If we can build a product or prove that a product which we built is saving a lot of money, then executives will listen. If that is not the case, then it's not ours to make a change. the change usually has to come from within a company. If a company has an enthusiastic inside, has a progressive R&D department inside, whatever, somebody who drives change, somebody who explores open source, somebody feels like, hey, yeah, this will take my company's product to the next level, then we as externals, you as consultants, me as a Yocto project representative, then we can enhance this. Then we can give them the right tools. Then we can show them how open source can facilitate their product. We can help them find the right projects. We can help them find the right tooling, and all of this. We can help them build a network, find support and help and everything. But I don't believe in change by force, not when it comes to things like this, because I've met too many engineers in my life who were so mentally locked on a specific approach, on a specific tool, on a specific way of doing things. Sometimes they were right, sometimes they were wrong, from my point of view. But it doesn't work to force it upon them, because the only thing that you will gain with force is a resistance. And nobody likes to argue all the time. That's just not fun. And if you have to work with a tool that you just hate, and some boss tells you, hey, I have decided you have to use this tool because I declare that it's awesome, then you will probably say, hey, either you give me a paycheck, which is so massive that I bear with this, or I will run away. Or in the most cases, you will just take the paycheck and then run away. And same goes for open source. We must not force people. We can educate people. We can show people what open source does, and then let them make up their minds themselves. And again, this is not a Brazilian thing. It is very much the same in each and every company.
Okay, Joseph, thank you. Let's move forward. You were on the organizers of the Yocto Summit Virtual, right? We'd love to hear a bit about your experience organizing that event. We're currently planning an online event focused on embedded Linux here in Brazil. And you would really appreciate any insights or lessons you could share with us.
Yeah, happy to. I think the one big learning from creating an online event or creating an event is that you will receive 90% of all CFP submission in the last 3 hours.
Wow.
And you will receive the remaining 10%.
Oh my God.
After the CFP closes. So it's completely bonkers. But everybody submits at the very last time. So the one thing that I can share is, don't be freaked out if you start a CFP and nobody responds, because that's what always happens. And just keep telling people, and just the day the CFP actually ends, you will have your submissions and people will show up. That's the crazy part about running an event. What else can I say about the Yocto Project Summit as a whole? Like so many online events, it started during pandemic. We used to have the Yocto Project Developer Day before that, next to Embedded Linux Conference or FOSDEM or whatever. And then COVID hit, and they were like, okay, we want to do something. And there I was just like, yep, if we do something, I'm happy to help. In the end, we just tried to do it. So I wouldn't say that our way is always the best or that we know everything. What I'm just saying is that try to make something which you also wanted to attend yourself. So if you make an event, make it so that your peers, your friends feel like, hey, yeah, this is something that I'm gonna drop in, and where I want to actually start discussing or following. Of course, you will probably need to poke your friends a little bit harder to actually sign up and submit. You will probably need to market it a little bit, but don't stress out. That's the first thing. The second thing is make recordings, because an event is nice, but the recordings will save you in the long run. Whatever you do, make sure you have proper recordings. Make sure you get proper recordings on YouTube, usually, and then show them around. I would say those are the two lessons. Whatever you use for CFP, whatever you use for registration, it really doesn't matter that much. Maybe 2.5 as advice. Try to be cost efficient, because if you are doing something which is introductory, which is meant to reach a new audience, remember that a lot of this audience will probably not get big budget, or will have to pay out of their own pocket. So if I'm paying out of my own pocket, finding $50 or $100 is usually fine. If I have to pay out of my own pocket for a fancy event which costs me like $2,000, then I won't do it. So this is one of the problems, not only with online events, but with every event. If you want to do an introductory event, it has to be cheap, because people need to just figure it out. They won't get the big budget from their boss already. If you want to do an advanced event, then you can be expensive, because an advanced event means people already have proven the value of something, and therefore their boss will give them budget. They will get time, they will get allowance and all of this. So online events naturally gravitate towards beginners. So I said 2 advices, and I'm on the 4th, right? So I guess the advice here is try to have good content for beginners, because the beginners are the ones you will attract through an online event, and which you will be able to pull in. Nurture them, help them. Of course, you should not throw money at the event, but if it's an online event, don't try to make a lot of money of it. Once things grow, once people get into the business, once people do more things, there might be advanced things which have a different structure. But especially online events where you try to build a user base, where you try to reach new people, make them very accessible in terms of time zone and in terms of cost.
Thank you very much, Fabio. I love the hints. Yes. Valuable advices for us also that are planning to have our event here. We're going to have this event on August 30. I'm going to write here just to people to book this date to come and see live our Linux show. Okay, so I have a question here for you, Joseph, related to security and IoT. Okay, how do you see the future of custom Linux distributions evolving, particularly in terms of security, and enable over-the-air updates across a vast array of devices, especially with IoT and expansion nowadays? You see, for example, smart TVs, other things that are massively updated, you know? So how do you see this problem of maintainability also?
Yeah, I would say the challenge is that almost no company that I know has made the step from changing software as a line item on the bill of materials to a constant thing. So if you know how hardware is manufactured, then I need to buy this chip. I need to buy this couple of resistors. I need to buy the PCB. I need to solder it. Everything has a price tag. And what managers would love if there was a line item which tells you, hey, software, $10. That's it. That's what they actually want. And they, as the hardware manufacturers or device manufacturers, have tried to treat software like this for many, many years. And that's a problem. Because if you build a device like that, then you end up with one state of the software, which is created once the device is constructed, and then you just try to ship it forever, which does not really work anymore, as we know these days. There are bug fixes, there are security vulnerabilities, all of this stuff. So there's two sides to this. You first need to get into your head that software is not a one-time effort. Software needs to be continuously maintained. This applies to your specific application. I mean, you brought up the smart TVs. I think that's a very neat example because, I mean, how many streaming services have you seen rise by now? How many have you seen fail? So if I'm a smart TV manufacturer and I want to keep on selling my stuff, I probably should have a way to add new streaming services to my sold devices, because that will keep people happy. And I should remove old and defunct ones. This is the application that I need to care about. Also, my application runs on some form of operating system, usually Linux. And I need to also keep this up to date, because otherwise some fancy hackers from some fancy countries will just say, hey, there's this huge installed base of like 2 million TVs. That would make a nice botnet, right? Let me go ahead. And so you need to stay up to date there too. So the first thing people need to get in their heads, it's not only the operating system, it's not only their application, the whole software stack needs to be properly maintained. The Yocto project is one thing that will help you there, especially with the LTS releases. I mean, this is something that the commercial side of the members really pushed for. I can see where it comes from. I do not necessarily agree with everything, but it makes sense for a device manufacturer. And the Yocto project helps you with the operating system side of things to stay up to date and maintained. This is the one side. Your application, you have to do yourself too. And the last missing piece is taking that software out to the devices. And this is where Mender comes in. There are, of course, other solutions there too. I mean, it's open source. Everybody can do whatever they please. I think Mender is outstanding a little bit because we do not only offer the client side things, but we also offer a management interface to it. So it's really an end-to-end solution. And that also highlights a little bit the challenge here. I mean, I've been in this for quite a long time, and back then I felt like, hey, installing a new software to a device, I mean, that's just like 5 lines of bash code, right? Copy this image to here, there. Show of hands, who has created something like this themselves? Me. And I think the big challenge in getting this, or getting software deployment into people's heads is that software deployment at scale, if we are talking about more than 10 devices, is an art in itself, because devices will be partially online or offline. Devices will have flaky connections. Devices will move across time zones. Devices will have challenges in terms of when can they be updated. I mean, you don't want to update your car when it's going like 200 kilometers per hour on the highway. That's obvious. But there's a lot of other things where it's not so obvious, or where you can't even control the state, and your update has to react to the state. About plastic extruders. If your system is controlling a plastic extruder and you are running an update while there is hot plastic in the extruder gun, it shuts down for like half a minute. You have a problem, because the extruder gun is like stuck and it has to be shut down, and people have to disassemble it and clean it, and it will cost you a lot of money. Things get even crazier when medical devices are involved, or things like that. So taking all of these things into consideration, how do you roll back if something goes wrong? How do you not only package the operating system, but maybe also your application? How do you combine this? And how do you roll out something only to a specific regulatory area? I mean, I'm in Germany here. You might have heard of the CRA, which means that there's a lot of regulation on what you have to update. There's other regulations in the US, and there's other regulations in India, whatever. So you might be required to roll out software only to a specific geographic area, or only in a specific time zone, or only of a specific customer setting, all of these things. And these are challenges that people often don't have on their minds when they think about how to get software out. So yes, I think Mender is a great solution, and that you should try it. But I also think that we are not the only ones. What I'm really convinced about that is, don't do it yourself. Whatever software you have to deploy to devices, don't think that you in one afternoon can create a better mechanism, because you can't, and you will end up with something that will bite your backside for the next 5 years, or how long your device lives. Use something which is out there. There are other solutions. They are all good. I'm really good friends with maintainers of other OTA solutions, or there's Mender. Just don't homebrew it. That's the big thing. With the expansion of IoT, scaling up is just makes it worse, essentially. If you homebrew something which fails in 1 of 1,000 cases, then it's no problem if you only have 100. Yes. But if you have 1,000, if you have 100,000 devices and it fails of 1 of 1,000, then you have 100 bricket devices, and each of those will cost you money. So IoT just adds scale, but it doesn't change the challenge.
Yeah, catastrophic, right? Okay. So Bruna? Bruna? Microphone.
I'm sorry. Just one thing you commented about the CRA. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because the CRA is European, right? But we see a lot of coming to Brazil also. People are starting to discuss using similar things here. So if you could talk a little bit about it, and then I'll go to my next question.
CRA has a number of implications. The two important ones are you need to provide, the two important ones are that you need to be able to provide an SBOM and you need to be able to provide updates, which are two things that Yocto will help with. So Yocto has excellent SBOM generation. Thanks, Joshua, again. And you basically, whatever build you have, you can just say, hey, give me an SBOM. It just store it along your release, and then you live happily forever after. The other one is being able to provide maintenance updates. And already touched upon this really briefly. Yocto gives you the LTRS releases for 4 years. So once you have settled on one of those, you can. The thing that you have to do is basically keep your integration workflow running on the top of this release for as long as you maintain this. After 4 years, you obviously will face a version bump, but given the operating system side of things and how to figure out the base underneath your product, Yocto gives you excellent material for covering the CRA. There actually is a resource by the Linux Foundation where they look at all of these things like CRA readiness and mechanisms and everything. Ping me later so I can look up the white paper and you can link it. But I mean, Yocto release got you covered, and then you only need to figure out how to get all of this out to the devices, and where we are back at OTA again.
The next question is a little bit about RISC-V, right? In May, I believe it was May, it was reported that Yocto Project would have official support for RISC-V, and other companies are also adopting officially Yocto. How has this growing support for RISC-V coupled with the increasing commitments from hardware vendors to Yocto impacted the Yocto ecosystem?
There's 2 questions in here. So the first question is, how about RISC-V? The problem with RISC-V is that it's a very, very scattered architecture. And so far, it is still facing the chicken and egg problem. There are no really good and affordable chips out there, so nobody really has money to throw at software. There's no software to run on good and affordable chips, and blah, 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 blah. So RISC-V themselves, so the RISC-V Foundation has understood that this is something they need to change, and this is why they signed up as platinum members to the Yocto project. Right now, the big thing that this has changed is that RISC-V is now a prime supported architecture, which means RISC-V is a support or is a tested architecture on the Yocto Project Autobuilder. I don't know. Are you aware of the Yocto Project Autobuilder? Does it tell you something?
I'm sorry. The what? Yocto Project?
The Yocto Project Autobuilder.
Autobuilder.
Auto Builder, yes.
Okay, so the Yocto Project Autobuilder is
I didn't understood before, sorry.
No, all good. So the Yocto Project Autobuilder is something that the Yocto project runs with the member fees, essentially. This is a massive effort. It's substantially 6 digits every year because we've got a massive server farm, custom crafted. I think it's like a couple of thousand cores, several terabytes of RAM, and basically every distribution imaginable as a build host. And RISC-V being a prime target now means that Yocto verifies building RISC-V images with all of the compatible layers, like the core layers, and it will get immediate attention and fixing if something falls over. That's the really first part. Risk 5 is now required for Yocto to actually do a release. That's the big thing. Hardware vendors in Yocto are always a little bit tricky because, or let's not say hardware vendors, let's say general members. Because, I mean, we love members because members fund the Yocto project. If you have funding, you can do things. The problem is that members sometimes have similar interests, then things are easy. Sometimes members have diverging interests, then things are not so easy. And things are especially not easy if members have diverging interests and there is nobody to do it. This is the big challenge that we face in the Yocto project, that a lot of things are technically very, very advanced. And the number of people who are actually able to tackle those problems is probably less than 5 on the whole planet Earth. And so the growing support by hardware vendors or by vendors as a whole means that we get money that we can actually find and pay those 5 people. And this means that in the long run, Yocto can be maintainable, can be stable, and can form a reliable base for products. It does not necessarily mean that it will magically get new features or can do additional great things or whatever. Really, Risk 5 is basically is an example of how a big member joining and donating the correlated funding will contribute to the underlying base ecosystem. Because if you are a member who wants to have like only virtualization, this is the only thing that you care about, running Docker on top of Yocto, then you don't have a real interest in creating a build system which is sustainable. Risk 5 needs something which is sustainable for a really long time across a huge variety of things. And so in this day, together with the other big shot members, all of the money they put in the fund. Yes, we do a little bit of advocacy, we do a little bit of marketing, we do a little bit of things like me, but in the end, all of this money goes into build assurance, into build testing, into quality, into maintenance, into making Yocto, as I said, a robust foundation for future-proof products, and that is thanks to the members.
Okay, let's pick some comments or question here from the chat. Let's pick.
Yeah, I tried to follow some, but trying to talk so much
at the same time.
I felt like I talked all of the time and probably not everything made sense, but
very good.
I tried.
Okay. The first one here. The first one is from Anderson. Are there some community to contribute and share knowledge, like Discord, for example?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. So it's IRC. We are still old, and we and text based. No, this is a common question, and we are very much looking into it. The big problem that we face is it's friction versus stability. Because IRC, as we know it right now, is super, super stable, and we can trust that we can have Yocto projects for the next 100 years on IRC channels. But yeah, it's not what people are used to anymore. On the other hand, there are things like Slack or Discord, which are very, very easy to use because everybody uses them for work. But then things happen like Slack deciding, well, we don't like being free anymore. Like, wouldn't you like just please throw like 10 grand at us each month? And we're like, nope. And Discord so far is free, but I mean, I think they went through the IPO recently or are preparing it. So I'm pretty sure that they also need to make money real soon. And so I don't trust them. That's the problem. Same goes for, I'm really sorry, GitHub, GitLab. They are all very convenient. They are all very easy to use. They are all low friction. But placing a product or a thing like the Yocto project, the main infrastructure on such a thing means that you have to trust them, and that you have to trust them to not be around for a year, but for 10 years or 20 years, and to not make a big change to the rules like in 2 months. And unfortunately, all of these companies have been known for this. So the community for the Yocto project is very, very old school. It's IRC these days. It's mailing lists. And that's basically it. Plus the Git repository on Yocto Project org themselves. As I said, we definitely are open to going forward. We are looking at this very, very much, but it's complicated. For now, please bear with us, old, gray, grumpy men who use IRC and emails. We try to be very friendly. Most of the time we succeed. If somebody's not friendly, please ping me, then I will kick them because it's my job to make sure that they are friendly. And of course, things like the Yocto Project Summit, the Yocto Project Developer Days, or you can talk to me, you can invite me for whatever. We are also planning to do meetups. If you want to host something like that, please let me know. But it's not, we don't have like a community which a web developer would recognize as such at the moment right now. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's good to answer in video here for Marilene this question. Nowadays, do you see significant difference between using Yocto and Buildroot for a big project? You answer here, but I think it's good to.
Let me explain a little bit more. The question is, what does big mean? Does big mean you are selling 1 million devices? Or does big mean you have a lot of code? Because that's the big difference here. Buildroot is a great tool if you don't have a super complex piece of software which needs composability. So, example, you have a device which basically runs one application. The application just works on this very specific device. You have a custom U-boot, you have a custom kernel, you have all of the networking stack and everything, and you want to build that. This is the only project that you sell. Then please use Buildroot, because that's what it will do. It will be easier. It will be easier for you to set it up, and you can sell 1 million devices of this. No problem. So Buildroot is suited for big projects. Buildroot falls apart if you need composability. That's so if you have like BSP A and BSP B, then you have some software which is middleware, like Mender, or like connection to your bug tracking service, or connection to whatever other framework. And then you have your own in-house libraries, which you share across projects. And then you have your custom application on top for project A and project B and project C and project D and project E. And then you have different hardware revisions and everything. And this is where Buildroot falls apart, because you have that one repository where everything is, and you have only one overlay to add your custom stuff. But what do you put in there? Do you put everything of this into this overlay? All BSPs, all applications, all everything? Or only a bit and contribute the rest to upstream? And I mean, all of this just like doesn't play out. So Buildroot, use it for projects with low complexity and possibly high turnover. Yocto, use it for projects where you have a high software complexity or required composability. I wouldn't say one is better or worse. The problem is, or the challenge is to understand which one matches your use case better. From my experience, I would say most of the use cases are more leaning towards composability, especially in the light of maintenance. You have hardware revisions. You need to change the sum or the sock after a year, or something else happens. And then you need to have like variants and things like this. Yocto helps you with that. So I would say in reality, probably Yocto is the better fit for 70 or 80% of cases, and Buildroot is the better fit for 20 or 30% of cases. But as I said, this is not because one is technologically better or worse. It's really pick the best tool for your problem, not the tool that you like better. Use the better tool.
And the last one here, Caio asked about, where is your hat?
At home. Yeah, the hat. The story about the hat is that there is no story, because everybody knows me with that one, and people ask me, where did you buy it, or did you travel to America, whatever. And the story is really that no, I went to a local home improvement market because I needed a potting seed or something like that. So really trivial stuff for gardening, and I needed a hat, and so they had hats, and I was like, that looks like a nice hat, and I bought it. That it has no story beyond that. It is a cheap hat from a local home improvement store in Germany. Too bad. but it makes for a nice trademark. But the second part of the question is actually which is my favorite layer, and that's a better question. For professional reasons, I have to say MetaMender, of course, because it makes you update all of your stuff. From a technological aspect, I would probably say meta virtualization, because you can do some really funky things in there. And I really haven't figured out all of those. Bruce does a tremendous job in maintaining and constructing that one. Sometimes too much of a tremendous job, so nobody can keep up with him. But looking at useful layers, meta virtualization, craziest layers, anything Qualcomm, and not for the better of craziness. Sorry. Interesting layer. One that I've actually started to try and play with today, Metasulka. This is a very, very fresh layer, promoted on LinkedIn just a couple of days back, where I definitely get his name wrong now. Esa Jeskala, something, guy from Finland, said, okay, I'm gonna make a Pocky with secure defaults. So like a distribution for Yocto, but with secure defaults, no root login, a sudo user, a firewall installed by default. And I'm trying to play a little bit with that one. I'm running into problems, but this one is really promising. And I encourage everybody to try and check it out.
What is the name again? Sorry.
Metasulka. I'm gonna drop it in some chat. Here's a chat. Metasulka. Let me find the link.
Metasulka.
Yep, because that one is actually really interesting. Metasulka distro. I found it. I'm dropping it in the chat here, and somebody of you takes it to the show notes or whatever. I can also put it over here. I'm seeing some mentions of Meta Pantavisor and Polarfire. Yeah, I'm not getting started on anything which is related to hardware here, and I think Pentacore is, at least the last time I looked at it, was something container rollout, right?
Bruna, it's about container.
Sorry, yes, they are. They're about containers. Maybe Fernando can talk better on the chat.
I'm not so much of a container guy. The problem is that containers are sometimes nice, but most of the times they get in my way. I can see them being useful for a lot of people, but I'm usually I'm in the operating system land, so I'm happy once Docker is installed. Yeah, so I mentioned far too many layers here. Meta security, of course, which has just seen a maintainer change, and Meta ARM, which we all need and love, for different versions of love. And yeah, but I think from the community aspect and the interesting or the craziness aspect, I'll stick with meta virtualization.
Okay, so Fabio, that's it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone, to join us live. I'm putting here the Josef LinkedIn.
Okay.
You can connect with Josef there. And this
Connect
is
with
it,
me.
guys. Thank you.
So, Joseph, a very special thank you to you, because you bring us such insightful and inspiring conversation about this technical issue. It's very difficult for most of the people. That's Yocto Project. And so we'd love to hear your final thoughts to the audience here in Brazil. Please.
my final thoughts is interesting because you just said it's a very technical thing. And I felt like I didn't talk about technicalities at all. We've just talked for more than an hour. And did we talk about anything bootloaders or kernel or patches or whatever? And I don't think so. So this is actually the final thought here. Yes, technology is important. Technology is relevant. But what actually makes things happen is people. Do you want to guess, Thiago, Fabio, Bruna, how many patches I have in the Yocto project?
Hundreds.
100?
No idea.
Exactly
Hundreds.
0.
Zero.
I have never sent a single line of code to neither the Yocto project documentation nor Open Embedded or Bitbake or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I am here talking about what Yocto does and how Yocto involves or how Yocto shapes technology, how Yocto can shape projects, how Yocto is maintained, and all of these things. The fact that it is me without any code shows you that yes, we need to do our work and build the things. But what actually makes all of this open source thing and the connections that we form and the community, not a matter of code. It's a matter of being good people. It's a matter of being friendly. It's a matter of being helpful and caring for each other. And I think that is the biggest thing of all of our conversation here that I have to share is don't be afraid to step up and ask questions or show or whatever. If it helps you or if you feel that something is worth showing, then I work really hard on building a community that is welcoming and encouraging and inviting for you. Your code doesn't have to be perfect or whatever, because we care about you as a person and you are not your code. We all needed to learn it at some point in time, but it does not define us. What defines us is how we behave as people in open source, and this is something that we are in together, and where we can just show that we care and that we are good people, and that's what I hope for and ask from everybody.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Josef.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. Like I said,
I hope we can meet again soon to learn more from you about Yocto, Linux, and more. Thank you also, Bruna, for helping us today.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Joseph. It was very insightful. And what you said is very true. The community is what matters.
Yes. And stay connected with Embarcados for more content about embedded systems, IoT, innovation, Linux, and so on. See you in the next episode, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good week
Bye.
for everybody.
Bye.